We've now discussed how Adrian has shown us the difference between Lynn and Nir's points of view, and how the best way to understand someone is with respect. Now I'm going to talk about how Adrian also wants us to understand that our greatest enemy when talking to someone can be our own delusions. We, as individuals, see things the way we have been trained to see the world. Everyone who has ever lived has their own views on the world, which are built on their experiences they've had. Allow me to show you a clip from the YouTube channel Vsauce, where Michael Stevens covers a similar topic in a video called "Is Your Red the Same as My Red?" Here, watch this clip.
Matters because it shows how fundamentally, in terms of our perceptions, we are all alone in our minds. Let's say I met an alien from a faraway solar system who, lucky enough, could speak English, but had never and could never feel pain. I could explain to the alien that pain is sent through A delta and C fibers to the spinal cord. The alien could learn every single cell and pathway and process and chemical involved in the feeling of pain. The alien could pass a biology exam about pain and believe that pain to us generally is a bad thing. But no matter how much he learned, the alien would never actually feel pain. Philosophers call these ineffable, raw feelings qualia. And our inability to connect physical phenomenon to these raw feelings, our inability to explain and share our own internal qualia, is known as the explanatory gap.
In this clip, Michael explains to us that the five senses our brain experiences are called qualia, and how there is an explanatory gap in which we are unable to communicate exactly what someone else is feeling. This can be brought back to Adrian's book, Elder Race. This explanatory gap can be seen between Nir and Lynn, but not with the colors they see and the things they smell, but instead with their worldviews. Adrian shows us this on page 96, 106, 108, and 156, where Lynn is making assumptions on Nir based on what she has read about wizards as a child. First mentioned on page 96, Lynn realizes that in the stories that she has read since she was young, wizards often demand a price for their power. Elder Race, page 96. She was waiting for the moment when she called his power and he named his price. She had, after all, put herself in such a story by knocking at the door of his tower. She should have remembered how such tales went, and I am caught in it now, and cannot just change my mind. The wizard is right here, and so she would have to make the most capital she could of it, before he turned that sternly dispassionate visage to her and made his demands. Here, she believes that eventually, just like in her stories, she will eventually have to offer something to the wizard in exchange for his magic. This isn't an accurate assumption though, as we know that Nir's motives are not to get something in return, but to see if the demon concerns him or not in the first place. The same idea of Lynn's view on wizards is brought back on page 106, when Nir is trying to explain why he doesn't like the way Lynn used his image to the crowd of scared folk. Elder Race, page 100 and something. Still not understanding him, she set her shoulders. Perhaps this was a test in the way of wizards. The sorcerer stared at her for an uncomfortable span of time, and she braced herself. I had forgotten the price, of course. Here comes. But what he said next was so far from what she expected that she actually staggered, as though trying to force an open door. No demands of flesh or fealty, but only, there is no magic. Elder Race, page 106. Once again, Lynn is expecting to hear some demands from him, because she is judging his character off some book she read, and not off of who he really is. She's taken back a bit when he doesn't demand anything, instead saying his magic isn't magic. The fact that she is expecting him to demand a price from her is causing some trouble in their communication. Soon after this, Lynn is finally able to look past her image of a typical sorcerer for a brief moment and see what's really in front of her. On page 108, Nier attempts to explain to Esha and Lynn that what they call magic isn't really magic to him, eventually giving up. Elder Race, page 108. He deflated, for a moment, the most forlorn thing she'd ever seen. Not the elder sorcerer, but some misshapen prodigy from a traveling show. Elder Race, page 108. For once, she doesn't see this all-knowing powerful wizard that demands favors, but instead she witnesses a frustrated man failing to get someone to understand his worldview, which is one step closer to actually understanding him, because that is who he is, not some magic guy. The final quote that I will be reviewing is on page 156, when Nier asks Lynn what she means when she uses the word demon. Elder Race, page 156. So what is a demon then? What has everyone recognized in this thing we face? Something from outside. She felt he must be testing her. Up there? No, outside. And she had the curious feeling that now it was he, the elder, failing to understand her. Page 156. This is the point where Lynn finally drops her view of fairy tale wizards and bases Nier's image off of her experiences with him and not some old book. She sees him less as an all-knowing being and more as a human like her, which is to say, she understands him better.
I can measure the wavelength of radiation, but I can't measure or observe the experience of a color inside your mind. So, how do I know that when you and me look at a strawberry, and in my brain this perception occurs, which I call red, that in your brain a perception like this doesn't occur, which you have of course also learned to call red. We both call it red, we communicate effectively, and walk away, never knowing just how different each of our internal experiences really were. For now, it remains the case that we have no way of knowing if my red is the same as your red.
As explained by Michael, we as humans cannot cross the explanatory gap and make someone see our own red. Just like Adrian is telling us that we can't get someone else to see the way our exact worldviews are developed and processed. We build our worldview off of our own experiences and no one else's, just like we see red the way our brain alone perceives it. While there is no way to get someone to see your red, Adrian wants us to know that for our worldviews, the only barrier there is, or explanatory gap, is the one we build around ourselves. This is the mistake we must avoid repeating. We shouldn't be making judgments on characters based on our own closed worldviews. We should instead try to understand the world outside of our mind to widen our understanding of other people. We should put everyone on the same blank slate before meeting them and try to learn who they are from scratch, not from our own worldview. That is to say, not with our own red.